The Women's Fund for Scotland is Scotland's only dedicated fund for women and girls. I'm Susan Morrison, and this is our podcast where we talk to inspiring women improving the lives of those women and girls today. In this episode, we're having a bit of a stramash with Clare and Heather, who are making rights real with the Forside Women and Girls group. First of all, I think I want to start by going, let's get the intros done. Right, I'm Susan and you are?
I'm Clare McGillivray and I'm the Director of Making Rights Real.
And I'm Heather Williams and I'm the training lead at the Scottish Women's Budget Group.
Right, and you're making rights real. So let's start with that, because it's a brilliant title. How do you mean making rights real?
Well, Making Rights Real is a wee charity and we work with communities across Scotland that are experiencing human rights abuses. So what we do is we support them to think about what's actually going on in your life and how are they human rights issues, who's responsible for them, and how do we shake the power tree to be able to make sure your rights are made real.
Shake the power tree.
Does what it says on the tin, really, Susan.
Which is a wonderful image. I don't know why, but I've got visions of the two of you standing there shaking a tree and wee men in suits falling out.
Well, we have been known to do some wacky stuff, but we'll probably get onto that later around our guerrilla artwork and some of the shenanigans we've been up to.
Okay, so I'm loving all of this. We've got shenanigans and guerrillas coming up later. Can't wait.
Correct.
So we've got the Make Rights Real and the gender budgeting.
Yeah, Scottish Women's Budget Group, Susan. So we are, again, a very small charity that aims to get us to ask questions about how is the way in which we raise money and how we spend money, how does it impact differently on men and women? And how does it either, how the way in which we use money in particular, how does it either address inequality or how does it exacerbate it and cause some of those systemic issues that women often come across in their lives?
I can see now how the two ideas mesh, but I mean, you had to explain it to me. So whose idea was it to bring the two of you together like this?
Well, that's a good question, actually.
It was a bit of joint shenanigans, really.
Yeah.
Are we going back to shenanigans now?
Yeah,
we?
No,
Right,
we
okay.
are. We're big on that, really, in our work. And it's really stems from Forside Women and Girls group, which is a wee intergenerational group in Trunnion, East Lothian. And they've been kind of going for about 14 years, led entirely by women and girl volunteers. And we've been quite often focusing on human rights in relation to women and girls. So the kids have done lots of stuff around the right to environment, around the right to housing. And what we were noticing was that there were things coming up around poverty that women and girls were starting to raise with Forside Women and Girls group. So Heather and myself kind of said, well, maybe this could be a bit of an opportunity to actually think a bit more around how can a grassroots group systemically shake that power tree and see how do we actually bring all of our energies together and all of our expertise together with women and girls right at the grassroots to see if we can make change happen. So it was a bit of a serendipitous kind of getting together, wasn't it, really?
And I think it's also that thing at this present moment in time, we're constantly told there's no money. But there is money, and it's about priorities, and it's about what we're prioritising and what we're knowing. It's about choices. East Lothian Council regularly are telling us there's no money, or they didn't get enough money for the Scottish Government, or it's, or similar, the Scottish Government are saying they didn't get money for Westminster and vice versa. So, for us, it's about saying, well, actually, there is money out there. It's about looking at how we use that money and what outcomes come for that money and who benefits from it and who doesn't. And really unpacking that and asking that question about is there better ways to be using the money that we currently have.
So it all started over a cup of tea, really, eh? So
it was tea.
Right, so first of all, I completely believe you that it was tea.
To have fun and social life with our work, really, as well, and one thing about Forside Women and Girls group is that they are completely up for fun and nonsense, really. So whatever we do, because it's an intergenerational group, there's always games, there's always music, there's always food, there's usually always dancing around handbags at the end of stuff. Mm-hmm. So as a kind of, a partnership, we all work really well together because we've got a same kind of value set and same kind of mischievousness for fun.
I'm getting quite strong mischievous vibes, I have to say.
But fun with a purpose, Susan.
Yeah,
Fun
yeah,
with a
absolutely.
purpose.
And with a serious purpose, which is about tackling misogyny and smashing the patriarchy.
Oh, right. I'm sure we can manage that before we get the custard creams out. That's you are very wicked. Because you're both sitting there smiling, looking absolutely fantastic, and you're coming out with all the shenanigans and mischief, and then all of a sudden you come out with, oh, I want to smash the patriarchy.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, just let's not limit our ambition. Can you just tell me a wee bit about Forsyth Women and Girls Group? How long has it been going?
Well, it's about 14 years, and I can't remember because I've got perimenopause brain and I can't remember any kind of details to things. But it really started. I mean, I live in Trinent locally anyway, so it really started with this view of actually what are we doing around women's rights here in East Lothian when we weren't really doing that much. So it started as, well, let's just have a cup of tea together. With a few women, and then it's grown into this kind of organic organisation that's not very well structured, but gets amazing stuff done. And we usually have events for International Women's Day every year. So getting together with the Scottish Women's Budget Group and making rights real has been really good because it's given us a bit of a focus on actual work throughout the year, whereas before it has been pretty much how do we celebrate the advances for women and girls, but also look at what needs to change.
One of the interesting things that you've said it twice now, intergenerational.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's a siloing goes on with the young women over here and older women over there, but you seem to be challenging that.
Well, we don't now, but I want to tell you a wee story because it used to be just a women's group, okay? Until about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So the Children's Parliament in Scotland were doing some work in Trinent with these amazing young children's human rights defenders who went to Geneva to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And they had been doing amazing work here in Trinent. And we were a bit like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, these kids are our bairns. Well, not literally our bairns, but they're our bairns in our local area. And they're talking to the committee about the rights of the child. So how are we not involving them in their group? So literally two of the bairns, Faith and Megan, came and tapped on our door and said, actually, you're having a women's group, you're discriminating against us and we want to be involved. And we were like, you're right, you're absolutely right. And we made kind of stupid decisions that we didn't think girls were old enough to be able to understand things around misogyny or around period poverty or around violence against women and girls, or around the global positioning of women and girls. And they blew us out of the water by saying, actually, we're really interested in that stuff. And by the way, we can help you to be a bit more funky. So they basically, Faith and Megan came to the very first event that we were running as a women and girls group just to observe and took the mics off us and facilitated the whole night.
And I think you're right, Susan, there is that thing about how we silo, how often we silo that young women have these issues and older women have these issues. But actually, it's often the same attitudes, beliefs and systemic issues that are running through all of the issues that we have.
Mm-hmm. And even, as you pointed out, Heather, it's understanding money, understanding what it does, because with money comes power. And it's the one thing that the patriarchy, which I think we're going to be smashing at, let me just check the time, 3:10 this afternoon, holds the money and the power. But once you start to release that, and at least the way that you've got the money out there, then things will improve. Well,
we had a really interesting chat when we brought the elected members together in East Lothian, and the kids developed a quiz, which was brilliant. So they said, how much does it cost for a local high school boys blazer? We were like, don't know. How much does it cost for a girls blazer? And guess what? The boys' blazers are cheaper than girls' blazers.
Why?
We're like, that's just totally baked into the system that it's okay that a girls' blazer and a boys' blazer are two different prices. So the whole system was set up in a way, and that was just one example that they were able to give around, like, the boys' football team got their sponsorship, but the girls' hockey team had to buy their own sticks and things. So you're like, okay, these are simple examples, but actually it goes to the much bigger issue.
I can explain that. So when I was at school, I was the shortest girl in my year. and they gave me a hockey stick, and that just gave me a weapon. So, so I think ever since then, the patriarchy has been frightened of tiny wee women with hockey sticks in their hands. But you're right, and there's all these funny, there's weird imbalances and strange things that happen to girls that have to be addressed. We never have. The Women's Fund for Scotland funded you. What was it that you could do with the money?
Well, what we wanted to do with the money was to really test this idea. What if we actually were able to support the group by having some structure and having a worker? So we've never had a worker before. It's always been voluntary run. So along with funding that we got also from the lottery, we put the two pots together and were able to get an amazing organiser locally here in Trinent to be able to support the group to develop, and also to support work in the Scottish Women's Budget Group to help us really tailor our expertise and grow some of the knowledge that we have. So that's what it's helped us to do, is to really think about this as a pilot. What do we, we've always been kind of chaotically organised, and it works brilliantly and beautifully. But what if we had a bit of structure? What if we had a worker who could really support us to move forward? And that's kind of where the money mainly has gone, gathering people together, having stramaches, which is what we call our local events.
Stramash is a brilliant word, isn't it? It's right up there with stooshy.
Sushi, I love sushi as well. But so that's what it's helped us to do, is to continue with the work with the Scottish Women's Budget Group, some of their expertise, and bringing on Lorraine as a worker to help us organise.
I've got to say, so far, I think the careering about and having fun seems to have worked really well. But the Women's Budget Group, so do you work with a lot of organisations or like this, or just this one?
So we've been about since 1999 when the Parliament was set up, but up until kind of 2020. Again, but like Forsyth Women and Girls Group, fully kind of voluntary run. And in 2020, we registered as a charity and were able to get some funding. So since then, we've been doing work with groups like Forsyth Women and Girls Group. We've also worked with Glasgow Disability Alliance. So we're new to this kind of, I suppose, new to working in this way. But I think, we're building connections and relationships that hopefully is making a difference to women in the areas that we're working in.
What's amazing about this project as well is globally significant, because in gender-based budgeting work around the world, this is not really happening, where grassroots intergenerational groups are actually taking on the learning of how to hold public authorities account for following the money. So we're really proud of what we're doing, actually.
You've just sort of like kind of opened my eyes to something there, because so many government decisions are taken without considering the impact on women's lives, which is dramatically different to the impact on men's lives. I'm reminded of that because recently I was talking to somebody who is doing research into the building of tower blocks in Glasgow, and they were all universally designed by men who went out to work and had no idea what happened with the doors shut behind them in the morning. And so the idea that the women had lives behind those doors never crossed their minds. Simple things like you couldn't get 3 people in a lift and a Silver Cross pram.
And that's still happening though,
Yeah.
Susan. You see that with the design of buses.
Aye.
LRT launched some new buses a couple of years ago, and you couldn't get a wheelchair and a buggy on the bus at the same time. So these things are still happening. Similarly, design and planning in terms of like active travel programs and things like that. Often when we design systems and structures, it's that default male we think about, men's, because that's who the average citizen is.
So by breaking down the system like that, I mean, explaining it like that, Heather, especially if you're explaining to girls who will then grow up through the system. Nice one. Got it.
What we're hoping anyway. But that's it, is that when we think, what we often hear is, but things are getting better for young women. And it's like, really? Is it? Folks say to me that attitudes and beliefs of we often hear that, but things are getting better because women are able to work and they're able to have careers and they're able to, have that idea that you can have everything. So folk often think, but these things are dealt with, it's better. But actually, our schools are toxic environments for our girls. There are, young women, while they might be more likely to end up at university, they're also saddled with that debt that comes from university these days.
Yep.
And they're still ending up in lower paid work because we don't value the work that is seen as women's work.
Exactly.
Got me going off on one now.
I noticed that. It was quite entertaining, actually. I thought, I'll go get a cup of tea and come back and find out if we're at the... So let me just find something out, though. So you said that Megan and Faith came in and chapped on your doors. It's a brilliant image. But I'm assuming that isn't how you get all your members.
Do you know, it probably is, actually. Well, no, but we've used those local networks that we've got, actually, and they get it, like Faith and Megan, honestly, were outstanding at just being able to say, actually, we're here, we're wanting to bring in our mums and our aunties along, and we want to bring our pals along. And then they started chatting to the kids who were in the lower years at high school at Ross High. So it has actually been a really natural progression of some of the girls being involved and then them bringing other girls along. So, I mean, actually, that's really worked for us in terms of getting the girls along.
Part of the work that we did, we launched a survey where we launched it online, but we recognised that not everybody's online. And this was to look at women's experiences, the cost of living crisis. And as part of that, we went out, we were in the high school when they had a swap day around kind of recycle, reuse and things like that. Because I think we often think that young people and teenagers didn't ken that when finances are tight in their families, but actually they absolutely do. Impacts on them and their lives and the opportunities that they have.
It's something that I've often wondered about youngsters at school, and because it wasn't taught to me when I was at school, was just handling money and budgeting.
I think part of the problem that we have these days, though, is that the issues around poverty aren't about budgeting. It's about the fact that actually folk just haven't got enough money in their pockets.
Absolutely.
Because of the systems that, social security systems and that we have.
Actually, poverty is a human rights failure. Politicians are choosing to not give people their rights around an adequate standard of living. UN are very clear that the right to an adequate standard of living should be available for all citizens, for all people. And one of the things that we're trying to do with this project as well is to say that we're rights holders as women and girls. Actually, there are duty bearers who are public authorities, Scottish Government, UK Government, who are responsible for enabling us to have our rights. And if they're not doing that, then actually we need to hold them to account, and hold them to account in a really public way, which goes on to our guerrilla artwork.
Tell me about the guerrilla artwork.
Yeah, so basically we used the results of the survey to highlight women's experiences of poverty in East Lothian and how the cost of living crisis was impacting on them in terms of the strategies that women were taking to manage that crunch. We went out, we got our stencils, we had our chalk paints, and we went out and sprayed the streets of Haddington ahead of the Scottish Government Cabinet coming to Haddington in December last year. So we had great fun doing that. Unfortunately, before the Cabinet arrived, East Lothian Council must somehow magically managed to find street cleaners to come and clean it up.
What?
But we had fun, and also it had using social media, it had a bit of an impact there as well.
Well, it had an impact as well because activists that we were in touch with in Belfast were able to make this go viral as well, because they said, how come East Lothian Council can clear up this graffiti, which is about women and girls and their rights, and they can't remove racist graffiti in areas where asylum seekers are being housed. So there was a bit of banter kind of across the sea as well, and Belfast Council getting a bit like tetchy about stuff like that.
I can't believe that they got the cleaners out that fast, honestly.
I know, from 11 o'clock on a Sunday night we were out as well.
Could you time that well? Yeah, brilliant.
8 o'clock in the morning, it was all clean. It was pretty impressive, really.
When they put their mindset, when they think they're going to get a ready the next morning, then they're in business straight away. But so you must see challenges coming up for you in the years ahead, though. Is there anything particular that you see that's really rearing its head?
Well, one of the big things for me is the Scottish Government has just ditched the human rights bill that was meant to be coming forward, which would have put people's rights, like the right to housing, right to an adequate standard of living, directly into Scots law, so that in a few years' time we would be able to be supporting communities to take public authorities to court around those issues. And in their wisdom at the last programme for government, they've ditched that, and that's an absolute disgrace in terms of people who are experiencing human rights abuses right now, women and girls across Scotland who are in homeless accommodation or who are, really struggling with poverty. It's them who need the change right now.
One of the things that I'm noticing is that women's groups for women and girls are beginning to communicate with each other a great deal more.
I think for us in Making Rights Real, we've kind of naturally started to connect some of the women's groups that we're working with, because we took a decision early on that we wanted to work alongside women and girls groups because they're disproportionately impacted on the back of COVID, really. We looked at all the data that was coming out of that. So some of the stuff that we've done is connecting the Fawside Women and Girls group with Gypsy Traveller communities we were working with across Fife and Perth and Kinross, and with the housing rights activists and the banana flats in Leith, who are women. So we've kind of done that in an informal way.
Divide and conquer is the way that people often try to silence individuals. So us coming together and speaking with one voice, I think helps to address some of the tactics that can be used by those who have power, who don't want to give up or share that power.
Yeah, I think some of the things like the platforms that the girls have had as well, I'm thinking back to, their involvement at the Scottish Parliament. They've spoken quite a few times at the Scottish Parliament for Human Rights Day and for stuff around the right to food and for children's rights in relation to free school meals.
And that's been one of the things for me is, in terms of being involved with Fawside Women and Girls Group, is that privilege to see the younger women growing in confidence and to be able to say, actually, my voice counts and this is what I think. It's that thing about, great things happen when women get together, don't they?
Oh, great things do happen. And it doesn't always take that many women. After all, it was 3 women that gave Macbeth such a hard time. So you don't need to be that many of us. But when we do get together, it is truly inspiring. I know that you've spent a lot of time laughing and joking through this conversation, and the words and the language and the joy that you're expressing is brilliant. Your serious message behind it. And I just want to run in a country run by you. I feel a lot better when you guys are out there. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us and listening to this story. I hope you've been inspired. And if you would like to support the Women's Fund for Scotland, search for us online and listen out for our other podcast episodes.